2012, the year of Pandora bangers, the end of the world, and most importantly, Gangnam Style. But if you remember, 2012 was also the year that the Euros were hosted in Poland and Ukraine, and long before the tournament even started, it was already kicking off. June 2008, UEFA made a statement about how important shortcomings regarding infrastructure were found in Ukraine. This included reports from Ukraine themselves about how they were behind on renovations for Kyiv Olympic Stadium, one of the venues to host Euro 2012 matches. The nation found difficulties in funding, which further drove backwards their efforts of preparation for Euro 2012. The Great Recession saw Ukraine's state revenues drop 30%, and officials kept breaking promises on financing for the European tournament. President Viktor Yushchenko said the Ukrainian government had only provided 5% of the $945 million it pledged to spend on games in 2009. Already having multiple issues, including constant political infighting from previous governing administrations, would contribute to the stalling of the nation's push for preparations. Rampant corruption also played its part in creating multiple organizational messes that further bogged down the speed of Ukraine's progress. Michel Platini made a visit in early 2009 and reassured that Ukraine would be fit to host the Euros, but made hints at giving more matches to Poland, who were much more prepared at the time. He also mentioned the many infrastructure problems still daunting Ukraine's progress. But then something happened, and to this day, not many people really understand how it happened. Ukraine started speedrunning infrastructure. September came around and Platini claimed that Ukraine had made sudden progress, and then 2 years later, Platini confirmed Ukraine was ready. Ukraine could finally rest, and we could all enjoy a great Euro 2012 tournament.
You've got mail.
For f***'s sake. Yeah, so during the actual tournament, there were allegations of infrastructure rebuilding being directly and indirectly affiliated with government officials. Sources in some companies said this allowed officials to receive between 30 to 40% of the state funds issued for Euro 2012 preparations. And by receive, I mean steal. The government spent over $10 billion on infrastructure, and up to $4 billion went directly to government officials. Now, this is just an allegation, and I couldn't really find too much information on it, but according to the Corruption Perceptions Index, I'm just going to assume it happened. Just a little over a week before the start of the tournament, BBC released an episode for their docu-series Panorama. Stadiums of Hate, it was called. It was a small documentary that highlighted the disgusting aspects of hooliganism and some ultra groups. This included racism, anti-Semitism, and even just general violence. There was even footage near the end of a bunch of Asian supporters being beaten with little to no help from police. There was also this one scene where a Ukrainian police officer, official of some sort, was being interviewed about some not so appropriate salutes being made in the stands. And his response was simply, yeah, they were just pointing at the opposition fans. You know, me and the boys just raising our open hands, pointing at the opposition's fans, while chanting anti-Semitic messages. This kind of reminds me of the time Lukaku had received monkey chants, and a day later a letter from some Inter Milan fan group said the monkey chants were like a compliment. In response to the Panorama episode, the Foreign Office advised fans of African, Caribbean, or Asian descent to take extra care. The FA estimated that only 5,000 England fans would travel to Ukraine in comparison to the 10,000 who went all the way to South Africa in 2010 for the World Cup. There was also a lot of criticism for the documentary as well. Many saw it as sensationalized and fear-mongering. Some argued that the coverage shown was very specific and only showed right-wing clubs without really any footage of just the general national level. The official England supporters club traveling to Euro 2012 called the program unhelpful, and some polls in the UK had expressed concern that they were being labeled racist. The editors of the documentary fought back, stating the program made clear they were investigating the behavior of some football supporters and political hooligans, not the peoples of the countries themselves. And this argument is completely destroyed by what Sol Campbell says. Don't even risk, because you could end up coming back in a coffin. To paint an entire nation as racist, or actually two nations that is, just feels a bit wrong to me. But at the same time, they shed a very great light on the extreme racism issue in Eastern European football that still kind of lingers around to this day. Not really lingers, it's still very much around. I'm going to throw in a couple stats. Don't generalize both of these nations because of it, but just look at these stats and be aware that they do exist and they are very much a problem. 133 incidents of discrimination in Poland and 62 in Ukraine from September 09 to March 2011. These are of course reported incidents, so there's more than there are actually on paper. And not to mention, looking at today, nationalists contribute to a good amount, and not really a good amount, a great amount of racism and homophobia in Poland. But that's part one. We'll come back to racism a little bit later in the video. Yulia Tymoshenko was a former prime minister who was the forefront of Ukraine's Orange Revolution, basically a revolution which saw a push for more democracy in Ukraine. Although years later she was imprisoned for her abuse of power and involvement in the Russian gas deal of 2009, which saw many countries get hit hard with a gas freeze since all of Europe practically relied on Russian gas. Many supporters and officials from differing nations believed her arrest was a selective persecution. In other words, she was jailed through the deliberate intention of revenge or bias, which again, to an extent, I don't really doubt, because at the time the president was pro-Russian Viktor Yanukovych, and his mansion that he lived in is now a symbolism of corruption. Allegations started coming out about how Tymoshenko was being mistreated and tortured in prison, and this is when European officials got a bit angry. Multiple EU officials announced they'd be boycotting Euro 2012 unless Tymoshenko was released. This included Germany's own Angela Merkel, one of the most powerful leaders in the EU. Ukraine was pretty furious themselves and argued that boycotting Euro 2012 would not be fair to the fans who just simply wanted to enjoy the sport. Nonetheless, nothing really came to pass because the tournament still happened and Tymoshenko was still in prison. Police brutality was also a concern before the tournaments. There had been a recent report from Amnesty about 2 men being beaten, robbed, and then imprisoned by 6 officers after a disagreement at a bar in Lviv, a host city for the tournaments. Amnesty also had repeatedly highlighted violations of the right to a free trial, ill treatment, and even torture in police custody. And of course, this is the police we're talking about here, so racism was quite prevalent. Many people of differing colors were stopped for the fact that they were just a different color. Prostitution is illegal in Ukraine, but that law is widely ignored. I'm starting to think that Ukraine might be the most problematic out of the 2 hosts. Femin, an activist group based in Ukraine, were concerned about how the tournament would increase the foothold on prostitution and sex tourism had on the economy. As a result, activists protested by going topless, breaching security, and grabbing the Euro trophy during its tour around the country's biggest cities. A good amount of light was shed on the treatment of stray dogs and cats in some parts of Ukraine, including Donetsk, another host city. According to campaigners fighting for animal rights, around 7,000 dogs a month were being shot, poisoned, and hung in the city alone. This was part of a cleanup ahead of the tournament. Michel Platini labeled hoteliers as bandits and crooks. Pourquoi, Michel? Probably because the hotel owners had risen their prices to as much as $1,000 a night at a 3-star hotel. A 3-star. Let me provide you the price of one of the top hotels in my region, the Ritz-Carlton in Charlotte, a 5-star. $459 a night. Finally, we've reached the actual tournament itself. Oh, but don't worry, those controversies still continue. In a match between Denmark and Portugal, Nicklas Bendtner, also known as Lord Bendtner, scored a goal to tie the game up 2-2. Bendtner, as a celebration, slid his shorts down to reveal a Paddy Power logo on his underwear. UEFA weren't happy about this. They banned him for 1 match and fined him 100k euros, which is pretty asinine when Porto were fined just 20k for racial abuse incited by their fans earlier in the year. Unfortunately, yes, there is a part 2 of this. This is more focusing on the incidents in the tournament itself, though. Before the tournament even started, Mario Balotelli threatened to walk off the pitch if he felt he was the subject of racial insults. Michel Platini, in response, said any player who walks off the pitch would receive a yellow card. Oh, Michel, you absolute f***ing moron. Right off the bat, during training at a Dutch camp, black players were abused by hooligans in Krakow, Poland. There were said to have been monkey noises chanted by the local DJs. During a match between Italy and Croatia, between 300 to 500 Croatian fans chanted monkey noises. A steward even found a banana. Croatia's FA were fined 84k euros. And if you remember, Nicklas Bendtner, who did something significantly less terrible, was fined 100K. Another incident occurred amongst the Spanish fans who were accused of racially abusing Mario Balotelli, and the same happened with Russians who were racially abusing Czech player Theodore Gebrselassie. And like I said before, these are just reported incidents, so there were probably plenty more incidents that were left unnoticed. Euro 2012 was by far one of the most controversial European tournaments to this day. It was a mix of everything: finances, corruption, racism, the list goes on, and the tournament itself helped the wider world understand the problems with these two countries, and it influences these countries more to improve their image. Whether the two countries use this bad publicity to better their image is still unknown. Surely there's been some improvements, but some problems may still linger. But what do you think about this? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you think there is a more controversial European tournament than the Euros of 2012, then be sure to leave it down below and I'll look more into it and maybe make a video on it. But like I said before, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If we can get, I don't know, like 100 likes on this video, I'll look into doing something a little similar. I'll be doing a lot more Euro type videos as the tournament is coming in pretty soon. And also, of course, the career mode videos will be coming out a little bit as well. Be sure to follow my socials of my Twitter, my Twitch, my TikTok, and my Instagram, and I will see you guys in the next video.